Ethical fashion production involves the creation of clothing and accessories in a manner that prioritizes social and environmental responsibility throughout the entire supply chain. The goal is to minimize the negative impacts of the fashion industry on workers, communities, and the environment. The process of ethical fashion production typically includes the following key elements. 1. Ethical design and materials. Sustainable materials. Ethical fashion begins with the choice of sustainable and eco-friendly materials. This includes organic cotton, hemp, tencel, recycled polyester, and other materials that have a lower environmental impact. Design for longevity. Designers focus on creating timeless, durable, and versatile pieces that resist trends, encouraging consumers to keep and wear the items for a longer time. 2. Fair labor practices. Fair wages and working conditions. Ethical fashion production prioritizes fair wages and safe working conditions for all workers involved in the supply chain. This includes factory workers, artisans, and farmers. No forced labor or child labor. Ethical brands commit to ensuring that their products are not produced through forced labor or child labor. They conduct regular audits and inspections to monitor and enforce these standards. 3. Transparent supply chain. Supply chain transparency. Ethical fashion brands are transparent about their entire supply chain, from raw material sourcing to manufacturing and distribution. Transparency helps consumers make informed choices and holds brands accountable for their practices. Traceability. Brands often trace the origin of their materials to ensure they come from ethical and sustainable sources. 4. Reducing environmental impact. Environmentally friendly production. Ethical fashion considers the environmental impact of production processes. Brands strive to minimize waste, reduce water and energy consumption, and implement eco-friendly manufacturing practices. Circular economy practices. Some ethical brands adopt circular economy principles, promoting recycling, upcycling, and closed-loop production to minimize the use of new resources. 5. Local and artisanal production. Supporting local communities. Ethical fashion may prioritize local and artisanal production to support local economies and preserve traditional craftsmanship. Reducing carbon footprint. By producing locally, brands can reduce transportation-related carbon emissions associated with long-distance shipping. 6. Animal welfare. Cruelty-free practices. Ethical fashion may include a commitment to cruelty-free practices, avoiding the use of materials derived from animals. This includes alternatives to leather and fur. Ethical treatment of animals. When animal-derived materials are used, ethical brands ensure that animals are treated humanely and that their welfare is a priority. 7. Certifications and standards. Third-party certifications. Ethical fashion brands may obtain certifications from third-party organizations that assess and verify their commitment to ethical and sustainable practices. Examples include Fair Trade, Global Organic Textile Standard, GOTS, and B Corp certification. Adherence to standards. Brands adhere to international standards and guidelines for ethical and sustainable fashion production. 8. Consumer education and engagement. Educating consumers. Ethical fashion brands educate consumers about the impact of their choices and promote awareness of ethical and sustainable practices in the fashion industry. Community engagement. Engaging with the community and involving consumers in the brand's mission can build a sense of shared responsibility for ethical fashion practices. 9. Continuous improvement. Monitoring and evaluation. Ethical brands regularly monitor and evaluate their practices to identify areas for improvement. This may involve conducting regular audits, seeking feedback from stakeholders, and implementing corrective measures. 10. Collaboration and industry advocacy. Ethical fashion brands may collaborate with other industry stakeholders, NGOs, and advocacy groups to drive positive change in the fashion industry. Ethical brands actively advocate for broader industry changes, influencing other companies to adopt more sustainable and ethical practices. By integrating these principles into their processes, ethical fashion brands aim to create a more sustainable and responsible industry that respects people, animals, and the environment. Consumers play a crucial role in supporting ethical fashion by making informed choices and demanding transparency and accountability from the brands they choose to support.